पुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पाद शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणम् सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः. Hari Om. So we are going to continue with chapter 4, what we had left before. The last few verses which had to be finished starting from 34th verse. But just in case someone is just joining in, I'll give a very, very brief outlook to overview to what the Gita has been up to this point. The most important thing is always before knowledge starts. Knowledge is always a conversation aimed at removing certain doubts. Our knowledge is illumining any kind of a knowledge, whether it is worldly knowledge, laukika gyan, or it is alaukika gyan, shastriya knowledge. The context has to be that there must be some topic of ignorance, something that we are not clear about, and someone who is clear about it is elucidating that, and thereby that transaction, that process where knowledge is illumining the one who doesn't know, this whole process is actually knowledge. So any knowledge must have a certain background of context. The background is, as we all know by now, Gita chapter 1 is the background for this knowledge to transact. And what is the uniqueness of chapter 1? Chapter 1 is Bhagavad Gita is a part of Mahabharata. And uniqueness of this is, Gita is, that it starts with identifying Dhritarashtra's question, which is the first verse of the Gita, marked as from where Gita begins. Just a verse before that means Mahabharata story is continuing. And the minute Dhritarashtra Uvacha starts, this is where is marked. It's, like you have a post-it. So you have posted it over there to say this is the context from where a completely different conversation is emerging. Up to the 18th chapter, 78th verse, this whole section of 700 and sometimes called 701 verses is termed as a separate, unique conversation between, yes, Arjuna and Krishna. And in this conversation, the topic that is touched upon starts with Dhritarashtra's question. And his question was the very first verse. Dharmakshetre kurukshetre samavetaha yuyutsavaha mamakav pandavaschaiva kimakurvata Sanjaya. He is asking Sanjaya, when my sons and sons of Pandu have assembled together on Dharmakshetra, Kurukshetra, which means the land of the Kurus, which is also said to be land of the Dharma. When they have assembled there, what are they doing? So this was just before the war had started. Of course, he's asking on the 10th day or so, but the conversation starts at the beginning point before the war. And this beginning point before the war, what was that highlight that set the tone of the knowledge to transact? That highlight was Arjuna's condition. Arjuna went through a state of temporary mental paralysis. He became kind of extreme extremely unsure of his own self, his capacities. He became doubtful of what he wanted to do. He was ridden with conflicts. He is almost on the verge of psychosis, neurosis. And at such a context where a very crucial thing has to start, suddenly he becomes paralyzed in action. This paralysis of action was an effect of the uncertainty of the mind. The doubts, the conflicts in the mind had grown so strong, terminated itself into becoming physical paralysis. Now that was the first verse of the Gita, first chapter. Second to 11th verse of the first chapter was where Duryodhana was showing his vanity and fear. How his arrogance was portrayed is shown between second and 11th verse of first chapter. Then the Kauravas were terrified when the conches blew, which was 12th to 19th verse of chapter 1. And then starts the process of Arjuna succumbing to his emotions, which was 20th to 30th verse. And then 31 to 39 verse, Arjuna starts to justify why he should not act, and he must begin to renounce. He wants to take the path of renounce, give up action. And he starts to justify, means his mind goes through paralysis and then inverts itself to justifying his own paralysis by giving as if extremely logical reasons. This is the point from where the context of knowledge begins. And the last 40th to 47th verse are actually depicting Arjuna's breakdown. This flows over into the second chapter, and the second chapter also starts first verse to 10th verse, how in his state of breakdown, he completely surrenders to the only person in front of him, and to his luck and to all our luck, it was Krishna who was in front of him as a Sarthi. Because he had become so paralyzed in his mind, he didn't know what was right, what was wrong. He didn't know whether he should act or he should renounce. He didn't know whether what was punya, what was pap. He didn't know what was his duty. He just couldn't understand why were they all there if it was only for the sake of the 5 of them getting their kingdom. Was the kingdom worth so many lives that was going to be killed in the process, and maybe a few generations would have taken to return to its state of normalcy? Under these conditions, 1st to 10th verse of chapter 2 sets completely the stage where once he succumbs and surrenders to Krishna, he starts that surrender state of his. Surrender means I don't know what I should do. Oh Krishna, tell me what is good for me. That state is where starts the stage of him becoming a student, means him becoming receptive to listening. What would resolve his state of his mind? That process of education is very unique to our culture, where a god has been the mouthpiece of knowledge for the sake of a human who is seeming to be completely lost. This conversation begins, and 11th verse onwards starts the process straight away. Krishna starts with Atmagyan. Now, why Atmagyan? The state of mind that every human being experiences, whether he's a child or he grows up, as you grow up, it's more and more defined. The state of confusions, the state of indecisiveness, fears, phobias, anxieties, etc., etc. There are 2 ways in which you can approach it. One way is how psychology would deal with it at the level of the mind itself. Means you're disturbed at the level of the mind and you try and find a solution at that level itself. That is one thing. Vedas does not look at that as a permanent solution. For Veda, it is important to understand the root cause of this disturbance. And the root cause of the disturbance Veda understands is Atma Ajnanam. As long as there is lack of true knowledge of oneself, the susceptibility of one's becoming disturbed is bound to be there. It is something which is, uh, you cannot avoid it. Unavoidable disturbances are going to keep cropping up. One statement is that Ajnanam is the cause of this state of mind. Now, they seem to be two absolutely apart from each other. In between is the knowledge which comes to bridge the gap. How does Ajnanam, Atma Ajnanam, actually result in even day-to-day mental disturbances? And these day-to-day mental disturbances are nothing but effects, one may call it, of simple Atma Ajnanam. And in between step of it is where it says, because of Atma Ajnanam, there is Deha Praptihi. This Deha Praptihi means we find ourselves embodied. We are a process of, we are exhibiting life. We find ourselves bound to the body. This bound to the body makes us feel limited. And because we feel limited, we feel incomplete, we are haath pair marna kind of a thing. We are spreading our hands and our senses and our mind and our legs and everything that we have in the world out there as if to fulfill ourselves. Now, this process is creating the cycle of strengthening the Atma Jnana, what Veda calls as the path of pravritti and the path of nivritti. In the path of pravritti, one takes on to the realms of actions. And if you do not do it as the Veda says, they once again return back to give you the phal for which again you are finding yourself identified with a body. Deh ke saath judna, deha yuktata, means you are bound to the body. This cycle is what needs to be cut, and it gets cut only by the process of Atma Gyan. So very clearly, the approach of dealing mental insufficiencies from the worldly knowledge is only at the level of the mind, but differentiating it entirely in degree and kind is the Vaidika knowledge, and in particular only Vedantic knowledge, which deals at this at its root problem. And so Krishna straight away starts to address Arjuna from verses 11 to 30 by giving him Atma Jnanam. And then from 31 to 38, Krishna had given him reasons why he should act. Why should Arjuna not succumb to these temporary emotions, temporary feelings, temporary thought process that had just surfaced, which wasn't seen before ever in his life, and it had just surfaced at that point. So Krishna gives him reasons why he should not succumb to this temporary state of mind. And then he says that if you really want to find solution and peace, and you want to take the path of sannyasa in life, then the only way is to convert this action, this field of activity of yours, this karam bhumi of yours, this varna ashrama based karma of yours, this whatever field of action you have chosen for yourself, you convert it into doing it as karam yoga. Now, doing it as karam yoga will be the stepping stone which will take you to your Atma Jnanam. And once you have Atma Jnanam, you are freed of any mental affectation at any point of time, because you are freed of the very cycle of birth and death. There is no longer an association finding yourself with a limited sense of yourself, of I. Once the Karam Yoga is talked of in 39 to 53 verse, then he concluded chapter 2 by giving the portion of Sthita Prajna, which means with Karam Yoga, you qualify yourself for Atma Jnanam, and once you are qualified, who is that person who is mentally free even when he is living in the body? Means he has a deha, but his mind is free. He is not afflicted by sense of incompleteness, a sense of loss, a sense of insecurity, a sense of fear, a sense of uncertainty. You can multiply many words to this. That Sthita Prajna portion was 54th to 72 verse, 54 to 72 verse of chapter 2. How a man whose knowledge, Atma Gyan, has got stabilized in his perception. All of us being students of Atma Gyan, we find that we have this Atma Gyan in what is that? Uh, Jugnu. जुगनू की लाइट थोड़ी देर के लिए ऑन फिर ऑफ फिर ऑन फिर ऑफ so we find more off stages than on stages in ourselves, which is better than a completely off stage. Means they don't seem to exhibit any sense of light, but they feel they are living with ragadvesh, with sense of I, but there is no connection of life with their own truth. And this, they just, the day starts and the day ends, and the month starts and the month ends, and the year starts and the year ends, and it continues. The cycle continues till death sees the person. Now, that is a very prakrit way of living a life. A student of Shastra, a student of, here in the context Gita, Krishna has brought us to the point of saying, once you do your actions in the spirit of Karam Yoga, you get qualified. Slowly, in time, your antakarna becomes qualified for receiving the Atma Gyan. And when there is Atma Gyan, then how would you live this life? Sthita Prajna, when your wisdom has become stable, means the perception that who you are as Atma has stabilized itself. Now it doesn't waver. No? The light is on always. The light of who you are. In the beginning, since he's already spoken that you are Atma, the one which doesn't die, which is not born, which is changeless, Nityam, Sarvagatam, Achalam, that which is not burnt, which is not wet, all those portions that he had spoken of in the second chapter, that he now says, this knowledge must become stable. The perception must stabilize. So the person in between, though we are covering it as a conversation, it looks as if starting point, ending point. But in between, there are those stages of lot of practices that the jiva has gone within his own self. Those in the name of Karam Yoga as a word, everyday life lived like that. And once the second chapter finished at this, ideally speaking, Krishna had given both Karma Marg and the Jnana Marg in the second chapter, and also the Jivan Mukta Lakshana. The entire Veda Sangraha, the entire summary of the Veda was put in the second chapter. But Arjuna was very disturbed and he did not get the gist in an objective way. He did not understand what Krishna was conveying to him. He was still listening to everything that was being said from the context of his own mind at that point of time, a disturbed mind. And because he was listening through that, fortunately, he had full faith in Krishna. Therefore, he just asks the question to Krishna again, which was the third chapter. Because he asked, we got the Gita continued. And in the third chapter, he asks him that he is not clear. What is it that he should be doing? So Karam Yoga, Krishna starts again, is the topic from verse 1 to verse 19 of the third chapter. Entirely talking of what is Karam Yoga in details. And the second topic from verse 20 to 34 spoke of what is a Shrestha Acharaha, means the one who is following this path. Uska acharan kaisa hai? Sthita Prajna is the lakshana of the one who is stabilized in his knowledge. Here, Karam Yog bhi karta hua insan, uska bhi ek acharan badal jata hai. From a complete prakrit manushya, he is now a Samskrita manushya. Means these are just two words. It doesn't matter. Terminology, vocabulary, you can use any. What it means to say is that a mind which was completely riddled with insecurity, etc., before, that mind transforms itself now, and his acharan itself is such that it becomes more stable even in his transactions in the world. His knowledge is still not firm of who he is, but his mind has matured enough to remain in a state of uh, objectivity above all situations of life. This was 20 to 34th verse. And then the last few verses, 35 to 43 of chapter 3, was talking about how to manage that which gives the greatest cause of disturbance to human being, which is desires. So managing karma. 35th to 43rd verse was managing karma. How do you manage a desire? Because if, yes, I am in avidya, it will take time to gain knowledge, but in the process of day-to-day life, I am a desiring person. I desire a lot of things because I have laid my happiness conditionally on a lot of situations and circumstances and people, etc. So this managing of this karma in such a way that I can convert it once again into yoga. And with this, the third chapter had ended. And as far as, again, the topic is to be concluded, it should have concluded there. But once more, because Arjuna had still not got revived fully, he was still sitting with self-delusions and self-conflicts. His mind was still not able to get the totality view. His mind was still absorbed with the individual perception of right and wrong. Therefore, in the fourth chapter, Krishna, thinking he had finished the topic, he starts with first giving the greatness of this Guru Shishya Parampara. So the fourth chapter on which we are now, that chapter is called Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, in other terms, simple terms, is just Jnana Yoga. Third chapter in simple terms is Karam Yoga. That Karam Yoga has brought the person to Jnana Yoga, and Krishna starts the first verse 1 to 15 talking about Guru Shishya Parampara and talking about the avatara. How the entire concept of avatara rahasya, hinting at the avatara, him being an avatara himself, and the types of avatara we touched upon at that time. 1 to 15 was avatara rahasya and the Guru Shishya Parampara and its greatness, because of which the Atma Gyan remains sustained in creation, available to every generation of life and form. So after that, from verse 16 to 24th verse, was what is this pursuit of Jnana? The entire third chapter was what is the pursuit of Karam Yoga? Fourth chapter is how does one pursue Jnanam, Atma Jnanam? What is this pursuit? So this pursuit of self-knowledge, which means when we have life, we have chosen some direction to our life. If we want preparation, the direction is Karam Yoga. If there is a certain degree of renunciation, vairagyam happened from the phala ichha of the world, then the pursuit is Jnana Yoga if one's interested in moksha, keeping in mind the very first sentence that one must always start the Gita with. Gita is not a textbook of secular methods of mind relief, mind peace, mental peace. Gita is not a text, as I started a little before, is not giving us psychological solutions to bring peace to our mind. That there will be peace to the mind when we follow the Gita is a byproduct, because Gita is aiming at absolute peace. How do you conduct your life that you can aim to absolute peace? But it is not just words that you can just wish it and it may happen. You will have to process the life in such a manner that this knowledge gives the direction on how to process that life. So third chapter said, how would you convert actions in the spirit of Karam Yoga? And the fourth chapter, for those who would think they are on the Nivritti mark, What should be that pursuit of self-knowledge? So he gave Jnana Yajna. The term for it is Jnana Yajna. So Jnana Yajna, which is the topic of the chapter and the entire book, as Acharyas have told us, 16th to 24th verse gives this as a synopsis. What is Jnana Yajna? And then for establishing, making it a pursuit, you need to know what are the Jnana sadhanas. What are the means for the knowledge? Those Jnana sadhanas and means for knowledge, how their practices are, and what the results would be, what we did as a part of Yajna, the whole concept of Yajna, from verse 25 to verse 33 is what we had concluded in the last sessions whenever we had them. So, Yajna is the technical term for Jnana Yoga, practices for Jnana Yoga, which means they're Jnana sadhanas. And what were those yajnas? If we see them in a overview, I'll just name them because we can't go back. Each yajna took us quite some classes, and they are by fortunately now on the channel. You can look at it over there. It takes time to go through it, but just to name those Jnana sadhanas to fit into the context now. The Jnana sadhanas that were spoken of in those verses was first itself was Jnana Yajna, the very pursuit of knowledge. How do you convert the perceptions? How do you make your life into a Jnana Yajna? The second was Deva Yajna, Damaha, which means Indriya Sanyama, sense control. The fourth was Vishaya Grahana Yajna, which means sense object control. The fifth was mind control, Chamaha, which was also called Atma Sanyama Yajna. The sixth was Dravya Yajna. Seventh was Tapo Yajna. Eighth was Yoga Yajna. Ninth was Swadhyaya Yajna. 10th was Pranayama Yajna. And 11th was Ahara Niyama. Now these were yajnas which have been given only as a broad outline. Yes, you can convert everything into a Jnana sadhana. That was the point indicated over there. Having finished this portion, now we are starting with the 34th verse and the end of this chapter. So 34th to 42 verses of this chapter are dealing with what are the obstacles that let me put it this way. What is the one most important obstacle in the Jnana Yajna? What would be an obstacle to, even if you're sincere, even if you have tried your practices, but if there is some sort of a depletion happening, if there is dissipation, if the practices are not strengthening themselves, then there is an obstacle. And what is that one obstacle he spoke of from 34 to 42 verse, which is of course in the sense of doubt. Since Gyan is a process of manan, विषय of mind का topic है, thoughts का process है. Gyan is involving your buddhi. If the buddhi itself is deluded, if the buddhi itself entertains sanshaya, means mind entertains a sanshaya and the buddhi is not getting clear on it, then this becomes an obstacle for jnana sadhana. So from 34th verse is where we are now starting, and Krishna is talking about who is going to be one who will be successful is just a term, Laukik term, but who will find fruition of their jnana sadhanas. So we will start with this by Ishvara's grace today. We have some time. I will want one person to volunteer to chant after me. The rest of you may remain muted and can chant yourselves along with us. So one person, or two people as we've done so far, two people who would like to volunteer. I don't know if we have a raise hand option here, so you may have to speak up, or Vedika will tell us if we have a raise hand option here.
Hari Om Deepti ji, I can. Shruti?
Yes, okay. One Shruti and another. One more person.
Can I do it? Shalini?
Okay. So today we'll have Shruti and Shalavi, just one verse at the moment. Or maybe we can do two verses we'll do. And Shruti first and then Shalini. 34th verse, chapter 4. तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन
तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन
तद्विद्वि प्रणिपातेन
परिप्रश्नेन सेवया
परिप्रश्नेन सेवया
परिप्रश्नेन सेवया
उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानम्
उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानम्
उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानम्
ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः
ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः
ज्ञानिनस्त्वदर्शिनः
तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया
तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया
द्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया
उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानम् ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः
उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानम् ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः
उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानम् ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः
तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानम् ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः
तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानम् ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः
तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया उपदेक्ष्यन्ति ते ज्ञानम् ज्ञानिनस्तत्त्वदर्शिनः
I think we'll just do this verse, otherwise we'll run short of time. You can all see the screen. Those who are chanting can tell me, can you see the verse?
Yes.
Yes, Neetiji.
Okay, great. So here we are with the verse. We'll do the first, just understand the words as they are. Krishna is continuing to talk now, which he started from verse number verse 5 onwards. He's been continuing this knowledge, and here in this portion he says, having finished the last verse, which was 33rd verse, the 33rd verse had said how Jnana Yajna, though he gave all the types of different means for knowledge, he said the Jnana Yajna, the very first one that he had spoken of, which was Brahmarpanam Brahmahavihi, establishing in the vision of Atma Jnanam, seeing everything as one, that that sadhana, practice was the most final one, highest one, supreme. He said it was Shreyan, above all the other yajnas. So, but natural, the question should come up, then how does one get this knowledge? In a very logical manner, the whole Gita is, if you follow the previous portion and you conclude its understanding in your mind, there will be the next question that emerges. Once you've understood all the yajnas and the jnana sadhanas, the natural question is, how do I begin or how do I pursue this knowledge? How do I strengthen this knowledge? To answer that question is this verse. He says, Tat vidhihi. Tad vidhihi. Tad vidhi is tat vidhi. Tat means that knowledge. Which knowledge? The jnana yoga. The practices that will make one come to the path of knowledge, self-knowledge. How does one know that? How does one vidhi? How do you know it? How do you understand it? How do you absorb that knowledge? So the answer is to know that tat vidhi. If you see the word meaning, in Hindi and English we have given both. उस ज्ञान को जानने के लिए, understanding that. How? प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया. These are the three things. He says, with these three things, what do? He says, you approach jnaninaha. Those who have this knowledge. Who are they? They are tattvadarshi. They are the ones who have the knowledge of the truth, tattvam. That tattvam is Atma Vidya. That tattvam is Atma Gyan. The final truths about every living being. Hari Om, someone's unmuted themselves. Since I can't see anyone, I'm on a mobile screen. So, Vedika, if you can notice who's...
It's still Veela auntie and Anampa auntie, but there's no
Nehal
okay. So we'll just...
Nehal is also unmuted. I don't know if...
Who?
Nehal.
Doesn't matter. Okay, so let's just leave it over there then.
All right.
We'll just try and minimize the background sounds if possible. So with these Gyani Naha, who's the Gyani? The Gyani is the Tattvadarshi. See, there's a lot of difference between having knowledge intellectually, having knowledge just through acquisition of reference books, having knowledge through hearing someone. There is one level of knowledge which is easier to gain. Knowledge is anyway not so easy to gain. Every knowledge requires sadhanas, disciplines, but it is still easier to gain the knowledge of Atma Vidya also through just hearing and listening and referring, and now with YouTubes it's all even more easy. The shortcut method of learning. But who's a Jnani? And he defines the Jnani here. He says the Jnani is the one who is a Tattvadarshi. He's a seer of the truth. He sees the truth. He has the vision of the truth. He knows the truth in its essence. It's not just the words, but he can see the truth. That Jnani Naha, he tells the students, everyone, approach a Jnani Naha, those Jnanis who are Tattvadarshis. They will give you that knowledge. But when do they give you the knowledge? So in this verse, very beautifully, in just 2 lines, the first line, Tat Vidhi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya, this line gives the qualifications of the students. Upadekshanti is, they will teach you. Te Jnanam, Te is you, they will teach you that knowledge. Who? Jnaninaha Tattvadarshinaha. In this one word, he has given the qualification of the teacher. So who should the student who is serious about his Atmagyanam, who should he approach? He should approach the Tattvadarshi. But who is the one who's first a student? A student here, he qualifies to say, he must have pranipatena. When you approach the teacher, he says the first thing is pranipatena. And when we come to the Bhashyam, Shankara himself defines all these, but I will give you the gist for the sake of those who are not still tuned to the Bhashyam. Shankara says pranipatena is the one who is what we says dandavat pranam karna. So in English it would be by prostrating, or the translation you can say it as by submission or surrender, but not a surrender of mind, a surrender as in a physical bowing down. Pranipatena means bowing down physically, and dandavat has its own significance. It approaches, it means, it symbolizes that there is complete acceptance in oneself of recognition that there is a knowledge to be sought, that I need to learn. Supposing I have a desire to become a pianist. I want to learn music. I want to practice piano. You bring the best top class piano in front of me and you keep it there. Piano I can take care of, I can dust, but will I learn to play piano on my own? I mean, I can watch any number of YouTubes, I can watch any number of people playing it, but will I learn it as become skillful in it? No, I know that I will have to first learn it from someone. To learn it from someone means I am in readiness to learn it. I understand, I recognize that I do not know it. That aspect of self-recognition is what accounted for the value called humility. Means a student, when he approaches for knowledge, must always be in the mode of remaining humble. That humility is what was expressed in the physical action of Dandavat Pranam. There are a lot of significances. We may move on to elaborating on it perhaps later. But here we just would like only to mention this much, that it means the physical part of the pranam. And why was that physical pranam done? Only acceptable when there is the bhavna behind it. We see in the modern world today, most of the people question this action, but which is fair for its own sake. We don't even know who we prostrate to. These are all different topics. This is the topic of Brahma Vidya. This is the topic of when you recognize that you want Atma Jnanam. As we often say, in Vivekananda ji had made this very popular, or I think so, when your clothes are on fire, the only thing you seek desperately at that time is water. That desperation felt inside, that you can see the falsity, but you do not know what is the truth. To identify that truth, you know you can place it, but you don't know it. To get that, you need a very expert, one who has himself learnt it from someone else. Means it's a process of unfoldment of knowledge. So pranipatena meant I am humble to the fact that the person I am seeking knowledge from would be knowing it, should be knowing it. I have chosen the person to teach me, in other words. So pranipaten meant just that dandavat pranam. Pariprashnena. See, this is where the English translations misled a whole lot of people who would otherwise be very sincere followers of this knowledge. Pranipatena, when you say only in English, he surrenders to the teacher. Now, surrender is a very vague term. What do you surrender? Gita very clearly says surrender is it's a physical action. You call it yoga. I may even say in a very liberal manner, it's a yoga. You're doing physical act, not the yoga of the Ashtanga yoga, just a physical pranam symbolizing humility and acceptance in your mind that you want to learn. How will you learn? He says pariprashnena. This is a very beautiful, unique thing again of this Vedic system of knowledge transaction. You have to clarify. He says in Hindi, this translation is very good. निष्कपट भाव से प्रश्न करने द्वारा means when you're questioning to learn, there are many people who question teachers. There are many kind of questions that teachers face, those who teach this. In fact, there are more irrelevant things that you have to answer than actually rare one ever who will ask the question that is relevant to what was being taught or what was being said. Or it's almost like Pariprashna means you must have the discipline of asking proper questions. Proper question, this proper question itself is, what is a proper question? Means whatever is the context being taught, when you don't understand, in your attempts to understand what the teacher is saying, you may not understand certain portions because they do not, you never thought of them. No Jiva thinks of Brahma Vidya on his own. So there will be many doubts that come up. Pariprashna is defining very, very closely by that Upasarga Pari. Prashna, which is specific, which is very specific to the topic. It is not a general thing. It's not like, China and India. You go to a teacher and say China and India, USA, COVID, or anything. That's not a question. That's not to be asked. You don't ask, should I, etc. So all questions that are not relevant to Brahma Gyan directly, to the topic that is being taught. He says, Pariprashnena means you must have the attitude of inquiry. You must be thirsty to learn. And to learn means you must also be absorbing. And when you absorb, you will understand there are many things you don't understand. Therefore, you need to clarify. But that clarification process is not another egoistic process. It is not an arrogant process. Nishkapat bhav se prashna karne dwara means you are genuinely wanting to learn and therefore you question. Most often the questions that get asked is only to show the other person's knowledge. So all these become, remember the context what I started with. The context is what will make the Gyan firm. Now these are the small areas that he talks to us, Krishna tells us, where our knowledge, in spite of our efforts, does not hold on. So, pranipatena, physical prostration, pariprashnena, a capacity to inquire, a diligence in the intellect, a sharpness of inquiry. The sharpness is qualified at another place where he says the student has medha shakti, which means whatever was taught in the past, he doesn't come to the class blank again and then says, "Acha, fir se batao." He has the medha shakti, means everything he holds in his mind so that he is able to keep reflecting on it, and that sort of absorption is what qualifies one for jnana yoga. And the third thing is sevaya. Sevaya means by service. Seva se. That was also again a part of, maybe because there was gurukulams and so the students came to the guru in those days, and truly the knowledge only gets transacted when a student is, when the student is seeking the knowledge and he approaches the teacher. The knowledge starts to filter away from the person when the teacher finds and teacher seeks the student. To that an extent, the communication is lost. And so there are many dissipators of communication. Communication itself is a difficult process, means it's a skill. That jnanam, he says, when you have these three, pranipatena, pariprashrena, sevaya, then having approached the teacher who was tattvadarshi, those teachers will jnanam upadekshanti. They will teach you that knowledge. And when they say they will teach you that knowledge, upadesh karenge, means वो जो उन्होंने सीखा है, जो उन्होंने मनन किया है, जो जिससे उनको आत्मा विद्या का बोध हुआ है, वो अब उपदेश आपको देंगे कि अब आप उस पे मनन कर सकें, एक्सेट्रा. फॉर विच द टीचर्स क्वालिफिकेशन वाज ही हैड टू यथार्थ तत्व को जानना है उसको. एंड दैट यथार्थ तत्व को जानने वाला, his other qualification was that he should have had the exposure, traditional method of learning, exposure to what are the prakriyas, what are the methodology used in Vedanta to convey Atmagyanam. It is not one person's path. This is a tradition started from the Adiguru himself. There are method of teaching. There is a method of teaching. It's almost like saying if you have to arrive at E is equal to mc square yourself, you have to start from somewhere more fundamental. Once you start from fundamental, you are brought to the higher and the higher and the higher, till you yourself are able to come to the point where you will derive E is equal to mc square. In the same way, this Atma Jnanam starts from a very fundamental place. And a fundamental place is the teacher must have the methodology, must have the communication skill, must have the exposure to what is those prakriyas in which Vedanta adopts itself, Vedanta adopts to convey this Atmajnana, which means avasthatraya. You are the seer of the three avasthas. It could be drikdrishya, the difference between the seer and the seen. It could be panchakosha vilakshanaha. It is, so arriving at Atma and sifting away the anatma for the person. This whole teaching is in such a way that the objective is to sift in the mind of the student the anatma from the atma. And once this teacher helps to sift this, means the knowledge helps. Teacher is only taking the support of the knowledge. Teacher is just in between postman. It is the Shastra which sifts it, to which the teacher is a mouthpiece. That sifting, when it's done, he says this is the way the Jnana sadhana begins, holds, and becomes to its end, reaches its end. So with this, if you read just the translation today, us Jnana ko in Hindi we'll do first, because a lot of things get conveyed. All of us are Hindi speaking. We don't have to shy away from it. We don't have a Westerner in our class that we need to compromise on it. If there is a message that comes clearer in Hindi, then it is easier to hold on to. उस ज्ञान को, कौन सा ज्ञान? आत्मज्ञान. तो तत्वदर्शी ज्ञानियों के पास जाकर, this is in brackets, means we have introduced the complete the sentence, उस ज्ञान को समझ, then उनको भली भांति दंडवत प्रणाम करने से, उनकी सेवा करने से और कपट छोड़कर सरलता पूर्वक प्रश्न करने से वे परमात्मा तत्व को भली भांति जानने वाले ज्ञानी महात्मा तुझे उस तत्व ज्ञान का उपदेश करेंगे. This translation is from the Gita Press book. I have not done this. The English translation, yes. I have not borrowed it literally. So, aspire to know that truth. Which truth? Which is to be known by prostrating, by asking relevant questions, and by offering service to them. Those seers of truth will teach you this knowledge, Atmagyan. So, with this, today we will, I think, conclude here. It's 12:07. Thanks to my police cop, time cop, who's been very, very diligent in reminding me. So, and because of her, I am able to also actually continue, thanks to the reminders, I mean. So we will just stop here. I'm not able to push this also. I think, yeah. And tomorrow we will take up the bhashyam of this portion. And if you have maybe 2 minutes we can take, if you have any clarification, you can ask if there is a clarification now. Within just this much, since we've just introduced today. Right. Okay, so then we'll end, and tomorrow we'll do the bhashyam of this. If you have any questions, you can Maybe we'll just send it. Maybe if there's anything important, I'll take it up. You can WhatsApp the message separate the question. Okay, I will end the class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti. Hari Om, everyone.